This is a short explanation of a prophecy that was given by the angel Gabriel or Gabriel to Daniel and was recorded for us in the 11th chapter of his book. This book has been preserved and is authentic. The most ancient manuscripts known are in the Dead Sea Scrolls, made around 125 before the Common Era, written before much of this prophecy had been fulfilled. Since much has already been fulfilled, we will begin with history to build our faith. This prophecy is unique in its detail and the length of history that it covers from Daniel's time 2,560 years ago right up to the time of the end, which is still in the future. This prophecy was given in 538, the year the Babylonian Empire was conquered by Cyrus the Great. He is known as Dul-Qarnayn, which means the two-horned one, and he is mentioned in both this book and the Quran. The prophecy begins by stating that the fourth king of the Persian Empire, who was Xerxes I, would assemble a mighty army composed of all parts of his realm and invade Greece, which happened as predicted in 480. This mighty multi-ethnic army is depicted on Xerxes' tomb in Naqsh-e Rustam, Iran. Next, Alexander the Great was predicted, whose empire was divided up into 4 kingdoms upon his death in 323. 2 of these rival kingdoms, that of the Ptolemies, the king of the south in Egypt, and the Seleucids, the king of the north, struggled to control Palestine, the glorious land. Gabriel's revelation to Daniel covers the political intrigues and battles fought during this time in great detail. A major figure in this part of the prophecy is Antiochus III, who assassinated his brother and then led his troops in the Battle of Raphia, near the Gazan border of Egypt in 217. Next, the Battle of Panium in 200 is especially intriguing because for the first time heavily armored cavalry called cataphracts were used, just as Gabriel predicted, giving the victory to Antiochus. Again we find that peace is attempted, this time when Antiochus gives his daughter Cleopatra I in marriage to Ptolemy V. After conquering Palestine, Antiochus turns his forces westward to the Aegean, but his conquests are put to an end by the Roman commander Scipio Asiaticus. Defeated, Antiochus is forced to pay war preparations and dies in his homeland in 187. This prophecy then shifts to the new king of the north, Rome. Verse 20 of the prophecy speaks of one who imposes taxes, and this is none other than Caesar Augustus, mentioned by name in the Gospel or Injil of Luke, chapter 2, where we read that Miriam registers for this tax in Bethlehem, where Yeshua, Isa al-Masih, is born. Verses 21 through 22 speak of Tiberius, the next Roman emperor who never obtained the full titles of royalty. During his reign, Yeshua, the Prince of the Covenant, as this prophecy calls him, gave his spirit to Yahweh Allah, who raised Yeshua to himself in 31 of the Common Era. The following verses speak of the peaceful replacement of the pagan Roman Empire by the papal Roman Empire, which continues to this day. But the main focus of this prophecy is 3 periods of crusades by the papal king of the north, the first of which were the crusades against the Arab Fatimid Caliphate to conquer Jerusalem in 1099. In each of these periods of crusades, the king of the north would win the first battle, but ultimately lose the war. Salah ad-Din, the new king of the south in Egypt, decisively defeated these crusaders in 1187. The second period of crusades was detailed in verses 29 through 30. These 2 verses alone give several very specific details which were only fulfilled by the Battle of Lepanto. First, this naval battle was fought on October 7, 1571, during a Hebrew religious festival, just as the prophecy predicts. Second, the Ottoman ships came from the south, from their conquest of Katim and Cyprus, to fight the Holy Roman League, the king of the north. And third, these Ottoman ships the prophecy describes as tzim, an Egyptian word for oared war galleys that dominated warfare in the Mediterranean for over 2 millennia. The Ottomans were defeated at this battle, but rebuilt their navy with more modern sailing ships and ultimately dominated the sea and trade. Grieved by their ultimate loss, the papacy turned its attention to the faithful people of the book, the Al-Kitab, the true believers, and killed many the following year in what is called the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. The prophecy discusses these reformers, those who instruct many of the lost truths of scriptures, rather than the blasphemies of the king of the north. These faithful are killed by sword and flame by this apostate king of the north, and yet they receive protection from the Ottomans, just as predicted. The stage is today being set for the fulfillment of the last 5 verses of this prophecy, beginning with verse 40, "At the time of the end, the king of the south, who may be the Mahdi who leads a future caliphate, inflicts a penetrating, deadly wound on the king of the north. This beast of revelation, this Dajjal, responds with a final crusade, conquering many countries, including Egypt, and ultimately sets up his palace in Jerusalem. The remnant of true believers escape northeast across into Jordan, and rendezvous with the remnant of true believers within Islam. Together both the children of Isaac and Ishmael are saved when this crusading king of the north comes to his end, and the kingdom of Yeshua, Isa al-Masih, is set up for all true believers."